Thank you. Thank you, Ilham. To our attendees, sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're very excited to kickstart this webinar. We're 5 minutes late, but that's okay. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Zara Farouk. I am an analyst for the Middle East Center at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy. I'm honored to be moderating today's extremely timely conversation, What's Next for Northeast Syria, Kurdish Rights, DAANES Damascus Talks, and the Road Ahead. So let me start by welcoming all of our attendees. For those of you who are still tuning in, we're glad to have you with us for what promises to be an important and nuanced discussion. Before we begin, just a quick note that today's event will include live translation from Kurdish to English, and we ask for your patience in allowing time for the translator to keep pace with the discussion. To frame our conversation today, I want to begin with a brief overview of the Kurdish question in Syria and its history and present-day realities on the ground. The Kurds are one of the largest stateless ethnic groups in the world. In Syria, they make up roughly 10% of the population and have historically faced political and cultural marginalization, not only in Syria, but in Iraq, in Turkey, and in Iran. The repression of the Kurds and other ethnic minorities has gone on since the creation of the French Mandate for Syria after the 1916 Sykes-Picot Agreement and the subsequent Treaty of Lausanne of 1923, which adjusted to the desires of the Turkish nationalist movement, which allocated the majority of the Kurdish homeland to modern-day Turkey. In Syria, successive governments have denied Kurd citizenship, banned the use of Kurdish language in public life, and suppressed their political organizing for decades. But after 2012, this changed dramatically after the Rojava Revolution, which began in Kobane. As Syria descended into civil war, the country's northeast, which was home to a majority Kurdish population, saw a political and security vacuum, and in response, Kurdish-led political and military structures emerged, forming what is known today as the Democratic Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, in short, DAANES. DAANES has governed the region since 2014, prioritizing gender parity, local governance, multi-ethnic representation, with an emphasis on decentralized decision-making. However, its legitimacy remains contested and remains a question with the current interim Syrian government. In 2024, the region entered a new political phase and a new interim administration led by President Ahmed al-Shara, and this change reflects a strategic opportunity to broaden representation and build Arab-Kurdish unity. It is against this backdrop of uncertainty and opportunity that we are here today to discuss these issues with a key stakeholder in these negotiations. I'm thrilled and extremely excited to welcome Ms. Ilham Ahmed, co-chair of DAANES and former president of the Executive Committee of the Syrian Democratic Council, the SDC, who have been allied with the United States in the struggle against ISIS. Ms. Ahmed is a central figure in Kurdish-led efforts to secure political recognition, build inclusive governance, and advance the rights of women and minorities across northeast Syria. Ilham, thank you for being with us today.
أهلا بك. شكرا.
And thank you. If I may translate for Ms. Ilham what you have already said very shortly. برز إلهام أو ده سپاسیاتت کی ولی بورینا خوش کسی حاضر دو خازیش برگام 5 دقیقه درنگ مان سپاسیا هر کسی که گو حاضر خود دن آسکرن زارا انالیزر ج انستیتوت آن نیو لاینز بانلا إيرو لسر بيشا روجا سوريا ما في كردان ودانو ستاندنين دناف برا باكرو جلاتي سوري وحكومتا آدم كيدية بأوايكي بر كرت بحثا ديروكا كردان لسوريا دكي شاوا بشتي شري جيهاني كمين ولوزاني همو ما فين كردا هاتن بن بيكرن وتما في ايه زمان يانجي ايه رخصن كرنا سياسي تنبو وروش وهاما بكردان را حياة 2012 دماكو ريفبريا خسر هات آباكرن بشتي شورشا لكوباني دس بيكر روش هات جوهرتن كردا كاري بخوا بريخستن بكن الهريمة باكر وجلاتي سوريا ودد 2024 دجي روشكنو لسوريا قومي بشتي كوريجيم هلوشيا و يعني حكومة كنو لسوريا هات آباكرن ب سروكاتيا أحمد الشرع نهاجي يعني دانو ستاندن هنا دنابرا ريفبريا خسر وحكومتا آدم كيدة تاددن عسكرين بريز إلهام أحمد هف سروكا دستاتي كليين دربة هف سروكا بريا يا كوميتيا تنفيذي يا مسدي و كسكي بر أكتيفة دمجارين ريفبرني وتثبيت كرنا جه بجي كرنا جنيجي دنافا ريفبريه وحكومتي دا تبخيري هاتي
جالك سباس أنجي بخيراتنا هركسكي كل ما قدر دكين.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank everyone for participating in this panel.
So before we go into the discussion, I would like to quickly make a quick note. Today's format will be a 35-minute moderated discussion, followed by a 15 to 20-minute Q&A session with the audience members. So to our attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A function and submit your questions during the event, and I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. In addition to this, we are also joined by Ms. Sinam Shirkani Mohammed, who is the representative of the Syrian Democratic Council to the United States. She is a top diplomat of the Democratic Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, and we are very excited to have her join this discussion as well.
بله از دخوازن تشتكي بيجن بري كو نقاش ما دس بكي اف نقاش و دردورا 35 دقيقة بردوام بكي نيزي 20 دق حيا 25 دق هي درفت جبو كسين حاضر كو برسان بكن او دكارن برسي خو بن بيسن و بشتر الزارة برسي واج مرة بخوينة ايرو بريز سينم جيب مرة حاضرة نو نرى مسدي يا لأمريكايا ويكجي دبلوماتين حري مزني باكروجلاتي سوريا
نقاش ويتش خاص دوام كي 25 دقيقة
25 دقيقة
تمام.
So, Ilham, I'd like to start by discussing ongoing negotiations between DAANES and the new interim government in Syria. Now, back in March of this year, President Ahmed al-Shara met with SDF commander Mazloum Abdi, and they signed what is largely viewed as a historic agreement, which aimed to bridge the divide between Damascus and DAANES. Last week, on July 9th, this is their third meeting between both leaders. They met again in Damascus to discuss implementation of this deal, which was brokered by the US's Special Envoy for Syria, Tom Barrack, alongside mediation support from the French. As you see it, since March, what progress has been made since the signing of the March agreement, and where do things stand now?
برز إلهام أم نقاش خدس بكن سر دانو ستاندن حالي حاضر دنافا باكروجلاتي سوري وحكومتها الشامية ده آداري ده إيصال شرع وعبدي هفدو ديتن ولهفكرنك هاتا إمذاكرن أو لهفكرن هاتا ديتن وك تشتكي ديروكي بوكو الشام وباكرو رجلاتي سوري تيدا هاتن قل هفدو ده نهي تيرمهي دجي دي ساجارك دن جوين للشامي تشيبو جبو بيك آنينا ويله هفكرنا كود آداري ده هات إمذاكرين تيدا نونري أمريكا تنبراك جي حاضر بو وهن كسين كاري ناف بنيتكن جي فرنسا جي حاضر بون جي آداري حيان هات دبينة جي بيش كتن شيبوي لسر عردي وأبدا نستندن لكود سكني
gelek spas careke din. Yani ez derbarî va danûstandinên ku yani jî itîfaqa ku çêbû itîfaqa dehê adarê yani heta bi niha piştî wê du cara hevdîtin çêbûnin. Yani hinek daxuyanî yan jî hinek tasawwurê ku derdikevin ortê yani dibêjin aliyê Qesedê da ewek heye mumatalak heye ji bo ku ev itîfaq pêk newê derengî xistin heye yani wek viya ser Qesedê zêdetir hatiye gotin feqet ez heqîqet waqe bêjim yani tiştê ku çêbûyê li ser ev de niha piştî wê îmzeyê yani me bi hêviyê me hebûn ku em yani carekî dî komisyon li hevdirûnin nîqaşan bikin komisyon bêne avakirin fakat yani avakirina komisyona pir zaman xwar derengî ket û yani di warê dan û standinan de ji bo ku randevû bê girtin li ser vê esasî bi rastî zaman pir xwar lê ji bo ku çerçeva endîmacê entegrasyona di nava dewletê de çê bibe ev irade ev biryar di aliyê him rêveberiya xweser de him jî hêzên Sûriya Demokratîk de heye û ev ya jêra ew lazim e jêra guftugû nîqaş lazim e ji bo ku em karibin vê mesela entegrasyonê bi şêwazekî rast heqîqî pêk bînin ne ku tenê em bêjin me em tevlê bûn û piştî wê jî carekî dî fawda derbikeve hinek di vê çerçevê de wisa gelek ew çêbûn problem derketin û heta bi niha jî ev hewldan hîn berdewam in.
Okay. So thank you very much, and I would start by commenting about a specific issue regarding the negotiations between North and East Syria and Damascus interim government. Since the signing of the agreement in March 10th up to now, 2 meetings happened, and there have been some statements or some impressions that SDF is the party that is prolonging these negotiations or the implementation of the agreement. But in reality, the process was that after signing the agreement, we had a hope that we will meet more than once with the Damascus interim government's negotiations committees, but the forming of the committees took a long time, and also it was very difficult to set dates or appointments for these committees to meet with each other. So it was somehow problematic for both sides, and this is how it was happening. So the blame wasn't only on SDF party. And also regarding the merge or integration process, of course, we as representatives of North and East Syria are willing to integrate North and East Syria into the new Syria. But this requires a long discussions and dialogue that should be very serious until we can reach some results to implement the agreement on the ground. And still problems occur in front of us, but we are continuing and we are trying to move on with the negotiations.
Yani perskirêkek heye di meselê famkirina entegrasyonê de nîzgatiyek wisa ew heye entegrasyon şêwazekî ew fam dikin yani nabînin ku tarafên din aliyên dinî Sûrî ew jî xelkê Sûrînin wana jî fedakarî kirine wana jî gelek tadhiyatê mezin dane ji bo yekbûna axa Sûrî tevbişînek mezin kirine yani vêna wisan lê mêze nakin aliyê hikûmeta Şamê ورنجكي يعني هذه كات تشتكي الجم وهي بهيلنكو ام هما في جري هر تشتكي بخندست خدا اف منطقة يوصاي نكو مؤسسنا ما بهفدرا افا بكن يانجي دولته ام بهفدرا افا بكن منطقة يوصا او نيني يعني سانكي هناك خديه سورينا هناك جي ميفان سر اخا سوري افياد بسبب كو بريجار مسألة ايه انتجراسيون يانجي خالنكو بريارنكو هاتبون قرسن برنجكي راست نقاشة وي تشي نبا ونكفي براتيكي مثلا كوميتي باروردين ايه دبستانا هفدو ديتن سر صياغتك اللي هفدكرن اما يعني وزارة حكومته ودستايا باروردة ريفابريا خسر وقتكو لهفدكرن اف بريار جريك اصلا ريفابريا الشامي دا جريك بريار بدي او دست خدا قرتن ساكنان اعلان نكرن وهر وها هناك خالي ديجي يعني الحلب مثلا اتفاق كسر طاخي الشيخ مقصود اشرفيه تشيبو حتى اصلا كي بيك هات بشتي بيجي جاري كي ديب بروبلم فرور درد كابل يعني الراسية كي وصل او هي يعني دواري اللي افكرنو بيك اني عندنا في اتفاق ده مسألة انتجراسيون ده وكهف فكران نيني افجي اصلا ديال شيتك.
And the main problem lays in the concept of integration itself, because we view integration in a different way that they view it. They understand that integration should be to hand over everything in North and East Syria to Damascus interim government, which we oppose because Damascus interim government's officials, they maybe do not consider us Syrians, maybe they consider us guests, and they ignore how much we like made efforts, how much we sacrificed, and we struggled to get to this point of governance, and they only want us to give up on everything for them. What we want is to be part of the government, establish the institution and the government and the future of Syria all together. But they view it very differently. They just maybe consider us guests on this land or in this country, and we are not the owner of this land, or maybe they do not even consider us Syrians. And this is what makes it very difficult to implement any decision or any article in the agreement of March 10th, because I can give an example of education committees who have met from the autonomous administration and also Damascus authorities. They have met and they have agreed upon a formula that can manage the educational process in our regions, and that formula was waiting for the agreement from Damascus government, but unfortunately that agreement did not happen. And so it is with the agreement of Sheikh Maqsood and Ashrafia. You know that we had reached an agreement to a certain point, then it has stopped as well. So this what makes integration into the new Syria very difficult for us.
يعني تشتي إيرو السويداء تشي دبا روشك يعني حالك انتقامي هي رغم يكون السويداء خلق دروز ملتكي مسالما ددما ريجيمي دوجي تفلي شران نبون اللي كيلك الريجيمي نسكنين خلق سوري إيدن نكشتن وحالا كيواني معارض جهبو يعني روشة كيواني مخالف معارض بونج الرجيم السوري سوري راجي ليل برامبر الرجيم السوري جي سلاح بتشكرانا كرن يعني حالا كيواني وصل روشة واني حالي خدها هبون فقط إيرو يعني وقتكو هولدانكو يعني أولكارية سيستم أولكاري سر أصلا سوري حميد شي بكن دمكو تشونا أمن الداخلي وأرتيش دمكو دتشا سويدا قال لك حالات إيكو انتقامي بر خراب درد كبن أورتي وبكرامة ملتي دروزي لسكاندن شي دبن أفايا نكو برسكريكي تشار سر بكي من نكو اندماج راس بيكتيني بروفا جيوي حق دنو درد خينا أورتي ودبي سببكو سوری تف ببه گولا خونه و اویل بر چاوی دنیای عالم حمید تیکرن براستی روشه که پر خطر لسر عرده هی دهندری سوری دا کو و روشن انتقامی ایکو هنه باوری ناده کو اندماجه که راست انتگراسیونه که راست به دولت را بکرن و هر کسک چک خودین بیجی کو هاده بلا ام بکبن بن سیا اف هیزین يجي سلاحك وأنا حالي حاضر دست دولتي هاي أم مصيري خوشي تسليمي ببكن أبيا روشين بر أو بخورة دار دخيني بري بي أي علوية وهاتبو كرن جبو فيجي فعم كرنا مسألة اندماجي بشوازكي راست وتعاونكي هفدو فعم كرنا كي دعالي جيرا لازمة كي مروف فيا بشوازكي راست شو بيك بني
Okay. What happens now in Sueda is a revenge situation. The Druze population in Syria were very peaceful with their neighbors and all the Syrian communities. They did not commit any crimes against any Syrian population, and they were also forming opposition to the Syrian regime. They were not loyal to the Syrian regime, but also they did not engage or involve in the civil war or the conflict in Syria. And the attempts now to impose a specific security situation in all the Syrian territories is problematic for Syrian communities. For example, sending the general security members to Sueda will not help to create a stable security situation. On the contrary, it will lead to some revenge cases that will lead to massacres against the population. And this is not creating any trust among Syrian population for the integration into the new government. How would anyone agree to lay down their weapons and hand over everything to this government and even put their destinies or fate in the hands of this government that is doing or subjecting their population to these actions? And before that, the massacres against Alawites happened. So it's very difficult, actually. Integration is requiring a lot of work and understanding between all parties, and it will need a long time and too much work to do.
يعني ام فيادا جي امريكا بشوازك ديركت كتير سر خطيت خوازي وان ديالوكا بشوازك راس بدا مشاندن جهودي وان مشكورا براسي ام سباسيشت كانوا ام دفيدا متشجع نجيكو فرنسا امريكا دفي وريد الرول بليزن حتى بريطانيا يعني جبوكو ديالوجك حقيقي بما شاندن وافرس كريك بالشكل كي جذري شهر سربه وراستي دولتك سوري بكر بتمثيله حمو قالي سوري بالرنجيه وبدروز علوي وشمي كرد وعرب هر كسي كي تشركز وهر كسي كي بكار بتمثيل بكي بر جرينجا خريستيانا يعني دبي وريدة ام جهودي وانجي ام سباسيت كنكو بارك قرتن سر خود في وريدة تخازن مسألة شهر سر بكن
US is directly engaged in facilitating these negotiations. We highly appreciate their efforts, and we are encouraged by their attendance in this negotiation, along with French and UK as well, UK officials as well. They are supporting the real dialogue to reach a permanent solution that can lead to establishing a government that can represent all the Syrian communities, including Druze, Alawites, Kurds, Arabs, Circassians, and Christians, and all Syrian communities as well.
Thank you so much for your answer and your response. It was very informative, Ilham. I would like to, you brought up the recent escalation of violence between the Druze and the Syrian government at the moment. And After the fall of Assad last December, the Druze community, they sought guarantees of inclusion under the new leadership of Ahmed al-Shara. But as you mentioned, this past weekend, there were heavy clashes between the Druze fighters and a Bedouin clan in the Suwaida province, which left 30 dead and 100 people injured, raising fears that sectarian violence is definitely still something that we should worry about, even under this new government. So I'd like to ask you, with all of this in mind and the recent events that have escalated, do you believe that President Shara will prioritize the needs and the rights of the Kurds in this transitional period? Or are you concerned with what we've seen in Suwaida, that tensions between Syrians and Kurds could escalate once again?
بريز إلهام تاني سر زمان أف يعني تشتي بيرا كوفيد عوية قومي دناف برا درزيان وحكومتي دا بشتي كوريجيم هلوشية درزيجي دخواستن هنا جارانتيان بستين إنش حكومتي حياكو انتجراسيون واجي تشيببه وكو تاني سر زمان في حفتية هن بوير قومي دناف برا درزية وهن عشيرين بدويدة سيه کس هاتن کشتن و صد کس جبرین دار بوند انجامی ده وقت خو يعني کرن کو اف عنف الطائفي تشتكي هنا مطرسي جي قالك هي دما رولا في حكومتها نودة دني رينا تده وبرز الشرع يعني كردان بكا وك أولوية شخور كوبان رجوني ودرباسي حكومة نوكي يانجي تدبينيكو وهن بوير عيني وينادنا برا خلكي سوري وكردان دجي بقومن
نها أما ترجيح ناكم براستي فان أحداث عنف نتهني البرامبرمان برامبر قالي خلكي سوري دنجي أم ترجيح ناكم تشتكي وصل شبه يعني كرد نتهني كردن مسلمان وسني نجي أجر مسألة تانية دكافي إطاري هناك مجموعات سنية عشق إيكو جواكي جبوخو دكن هدف بري في مثلا تقينك الكنيسة مسيحية دا خريستيان لشامي تشيبو بري في مثلا دجي علويان قتل عامين مظن هات بيكوانين نهاجي اللي دجي دروزة تشتي وصا تشي دبن يعني مثلا إيه علوية وقفلوا لي النظام يعني برماهية الرجيم يكون هات قوتن وفي شكلي أو بوتشيبون يعني مجازر لسر وان هاتن بيكوانين دن فقط إيه دروزة تسوجي وان تنية يعني دروز ملتكي مسالما لجي خونن حطاب نهات تعدايا خل كسكينة دانه أما رغم ويجي سر وانا إيرش تشيبون نهافا جروبين بدوي إين در دور أونا سنينة يعني أمن العام دمكي دا دقاريبون وانا بشيوازة كي أو بكن يعني درفي في تشرشفي حمي بهلن فقط بشتي إيرش تشيدبن يعني بشتي كو مداخلات تشيدبه قتل عام مظن بيكتين يعني فا هنا جروبين إيه منفلتن إيه ند نوفا سيستم دانن لهر داره إيدي فان سوجادكن ولدجي كردا إيرو هرما كردان نتهني كردن خريستيانن عربن مسلمانن سنين رنگ ده لباكور روجلاتي سوري إنسان جيان دكن جبو بيجي پر خطره كو فكراندنك وصا چه ببه و ام هيفي دكن شرع إديد في وارده daha زيادتر ريا ديالوكي أساس بكره يعني همج قواتي خورا همج سازين كوچي كرن مثلا راغاندنا وان افرمي دولتي دم خطابة كراهية بر بشيوازي كي خراب دوشيني أفياد ناف خلكي سني دا وصل سد دمانكي وها درد خينكو صانكي شيطانا يعني جي أم بيجي نشتا خلكي ندن درفي وانا بحمي خرابا بحمي شيطانا بفيشي وزي درفي كبا ورتي وأفنا باشن حاكميتك لسر لازمة أف خطابة كراهية جورتي رابع بروفاجي وي حمو بروغرام تلفزيونا دعوة آشيتي دعوة الهفكرني دعوة بهفكرتني دعوة آفاکرنا سوری به هفدورا سر وانا زیادتر ترکیز چه ببه سبوی سر راست ببه اما کو تلویزیون کو دولت ویشه وزی کار بکی يعني بشكل خزعي ريل بيشي قتل عام نجيبت كي
Okay. Of course, the last option we think about is violation or violence, not only against us, but against all Syrian people. We do not want to see any of Syrian population being subjected to any kind of violations. Kurds are also Muslims and they are Sunni, but the problem is in some military factions that are also Sunni but very extremist, and they always try to target civilians, as what happened in Marilia's church in the mosques, and also the attacks and massacres against Alawites or Druze. In the coastal cities, they said that the remains of Assad regime created this problem, and they were following them and trying to stop them from creating any problem. But with Druze, they have no justification to do what they are doing against Druze, because Druze are very peaceful and they did not hurt any of Syrian components. And although they are very peaceful, but the attack happened against them. The Bedouin tribes were also Sunni, and the general security apparatus could keep them away from these actions, but unfortunately, after they have intervened, the situation, more massacres happened, and these factions are out of control, and they are committing massacres against the population in different cities in Syria. In North and East Syria, you know how the society is very diverse. It's not only Kurds, there are Arabs, Christians, and different sects living in the society of North and East Syria, and the situation will be very dangerous and risky if anything happens. That's why we hope that the government will adopt the dialogue. And there is another issue that is, unfortunately, their media and social media and official press are adopting the hate speech against other Syrian communities. And of course, they are trying to show other communities who are not like them as evils or as enemies. This, of course, will lead to violence actions against or amidst Syrian communities. On the contrary, they should promote the peaceful dialogue or the peaceful solution for the situation in Syria, and also promote the cohesion among Syrians. But if the official TV channel of the government is trying to spread that among Syrians and use the hate speech, so we'll see more actions of that occurring in the future.
Thank you so much for your answer, Ilham. So as you mentioned, the minorities in Syria, including the Kurds, the Assyrians, the Druze, there's several minorities whose needs have to be met and need to be recognized by this interim Syrian government. So I would like to know more from your perspective, what concrete steps you would like to see from this interim government that would build confidence and signal a real break from past centralization from the previous regime, and a shift away from exclusion of these minorities who strive to be recognized. As well as that, it brings us to the next dimension of inclusive governance, which includes the role of women. It's clear that Northeast Syria has introduced and offered a very unique model of governance, not just ethnically inclusive, but structurally committed to gender equity and parity. One of the most notable differences between DAANES and the central government in Damascus is gender representation. In northeast Syria, we've seen a system-wide commitment to gender parity, with women occupying 50% of government positions, not simply as symbolic representatives, but as decision makers. For example, the YPJ, the Women's Protection Unit, which is an all-female brigade and the first all-female combat unit in the world, who've been instrumental in the battle against ISIS. And so I'd like to learn more about how DAANES engages in negotiations with Damascus and how this level of participation from women might pose as an issue and a structural challenge to the new interim government that might be um, reintroduced or new to the idea of such an active role women play in governance.
اوكي بريز إلهام تتزاني كرد وقال لك كيمنتوين دنيا سوريا ده وك درزيان جي وك أرمنيان جي كيمنتوين دن أو جي وان باعترافي هي وبغارانتيا ما في وان يانجي بجي كرنا داخوازين وان هي از دخوازم جواناس بكم چی گاف گرک ورن آویتنج آلی حکومتا نوفج بو آواکرنا باوریه و بده خویانی کرن کو وی او زنجیرا ناوندیبونی شکنان دیه و بلکی درفت هبی کو ما في نناوندیبونی بده هنکی من توان و شخوا سر مجارة حكومتك وجهي حركة ده هبجي مجارة ما في جنيجي درت كبهولي شبركو باكرو جلاتي سوري موديلكي پر خوش ج ريفا بريني رداية نتني جبركو حموكي من التوجيه خواتي دقرن لي جبركو جنجي ده جهي خواتي دقري وناب أوايكي سامبوليك لي جنجي خوا يعني جي صدي بينجي جه جنيرنا أو جهن بريار قرتني جي جنجه خدوات دقري يعني وقف أذكار مينا كايا بجيجي بدمكو أو أرتش حمو جنجه خطي دقرن بخوا آفا كرنا و دشري داعشي دجيجه خوا قرتن وباكرو جلاتي سوري دنابا دانو ستاندن عنده يعني او هبونا جني علي باكر جلاتي السوري دنافا دانو ستاندنا ده حياة كجا أستي باندور بكي و تفليبونا جني دنافا حكومتي ده ومسلك بروبلماتيك بي يانجي وإشكاليتي دهبي جبركم دزانن حكومتنا هال سوريا حكم دكي مجارة تفليبونا جني يانجي جه قرتنا جني دنافا حكومتي ده جيرا بر مجارة كينوي
تمام. يعني از وصل بيجو وام فيجي باورن سيستما ننافندي او دبا جارانتيا باراستنا پرنگیا جواکا سوری و جارانتيا باراستنا ما في جنجي هبونا جن ورولا جن دناها جواكا دم ديارة يعني رنگي هي حالي حاضر سياستي كود عليه حكومتها مؤقتة تيمشاندنه اف سيستما هاي وك هي بباريزه لي لجور هنا تشتكوا او راست بينن والجور كو دكارن إفادة وان بكي في شوازي هنا جوهرتنا تيزا تشيتكن فيجي البيجن يعني البيجن تشتي دولتي دا جريتايس ريجيما بعسي كيفن ام جورتي رات كلام تشتكي نوداتي نوداتي از في بيجم يعني نافي مثلا جمهورية عربي سوري او جي انجام بريارن يانجي سياسات اي رژیم بعث بو رژیم بعث شو رژیم اسد شو دکاره اویا بگو هرتن به جمهوریت سوری افاده تفاهی جواک سوری دکی نه ناوندیبون مثلا صلاحیت جهنک محافظات رو وری دایم به شیوازه کی کو قاربن ما في جن رولا جن مثلا بباريزن هريم بباريزن يعني تشرشفة كي وصادا إن نافندي بونا متكارن بيجن دكارة ببي كارانتي لي مينا بري ريجيمة كمركزي وببي سدامي قالك شر نافوي خطری پر مزن هيك و اگر به شوازی مرکزی بونا عشق به فرض کردن لسر جواکی شر دندری سوری دوی نقد ام ویاد دبینن ام هیست کن جبوه ام دبیجن دوی وارد ام آلیکاریت خوازم براستی دستک هبی کو به شوازه کی نرم کو هرتن دناوا سوری دا چه ببی کو هر کسک بوی خودی ماف بی کو جاره کی دی خوین بر رجاندن یانجی کشتن نافوی چه بی.
Okay. So I would say that we do believe that decentralization is the guarantee for the rights and protection of the diversity of Syria, and also guarantee the rights and participation of women in the society and in the government as well. The impression that Damascus government is trying to give currently actually is that they do not like anything that is linked to Assad regime or has been imposed by Assad regime, and they are trying to adopt the changes and create some changes as required. Based on that, for example, the Syrian Arab Republic is one of the practices or policies that has been created by Assad regime. Of course, this name of the republic does not represent all Syrians. It can be changed into the Syrian Republic, which will represent the diversity of Syrian society. And also implementing decentralization via giving some advantages or mandate for local councils or governorates or directorates in every Syrian city. This can also lead to guarantee the rights of every component in every Syrian city, and also guarantee the rights of women in every region. But acting like the previous regime or government and focusing on a centralized form of government will, of course, lead to a civil war, and like having an extremist centralized government will not stop the violence in across Syrian territories, and that's why we need a big help and assistance. Actually, we need to make a very flexible and easy change in Syria that can guarantee the rights of the Syrian communities without resorting to violence.
That's very insightful. Thank you, Ilham. It's clear that political recognition is only one big part of the picture, and that the real test of whether this interim Syrian government is willing to engage seriously with the political, social, and institutional models that DAANES has built will be rooted in whether they're willing to embrace decentralization, women's inclusion, and embracing the diverse fabric of Syrian society. And even with international mediation, there should be an indication of genuine political will to engage with these diverse minorities. So I'd like to take a step back and look at the Kurdish political landscape more broadly. Over the past decade, there have been efforts to build unity amongst Kurdish political actors, both within Syria and in the broader region. So I'd like to know, from your perspective, Ilham, what are your views on the current state of Kurdish unity and political cooperation, particularly within Syria? And from your perspective, what would a viable and just political for Northeast Syria actually look like? What's the ideal case scenario from the perspective of DAANES?
Um, uh, ازي وقر مقابكي باش بحثا ما مجارة ما في كردان بكم دوان ده سالي داويدة يعني هناك محاولة جالي ودهبون كو يكتيا كردي ورا آفاكرن دسوريا يدا ودهريمي بقشتي دجي و يعني أو وك تعاونكي دناف برا هيزن كردي دا تشي ببي دنارينا ودا يعني اف يكيتيا كردي و اف تعاونا سياسيا كدنا برا واد تشي دبي بقشتي هنشاوا دبينن و يعني روشة سياسية حري باش جبو كردان دو سوريا دا ويتشاوا بي
کنفرانسك چی بود؟ ده کنفرانس دا لسر گلک خالا آلین کرد لحفظ کرن یعنی دوی کنفرانس دا 400 نزدیکی زیده 400 کسات دا آمده بون جهر پارتی و کسایت سربخو و نافدار yani آمده بون ده کنفرانس دا و امو ساعت کارن فیلم بکن یعنی بیجن او وثیقه کود کنفرانس دا هاتی اریکن او یا بالتمامي إفادة تأخذن جالي كرد لرجعوا جالي سوري بيويستا كو ديالوجا كتشي ببي يعني شاندا كوش كونفرنس در كتيا أو شاندا هفديتن لجال شرع بكن ويجي مسألة دستور مجارك بفر جرين جدا بري سوري ده يعني الدستور كو آنها دانينا دستور كإفادة جواكا سوري ناكي يعني رنگ بون جواكا سوري زده ifade nake kemani te dehenim le dema ku destura bingehîn were deynandin pêwîst e wê derê him temsîl tê de hebe êku binivîsînin desturê û him jî mav tê de misûger bibin yani di çerçeva ew wesîqa ku hatiye erêkirin xalên bingehîn gereke di wir da bicî bibin û her wiha mafê pêkhateyên din jî pêwîst e di destur da bicî bibin garantiyên destûr bi rastî pir girîng in yani heta niha wisa pir zêde dernakeve pêş lê em wisa dibînin ku garantiyên destûrî ji bo hemû pêkhateyên civaka Sûrî jî girîng in.
Okay, so months ago a conference was held in Qamishlo. 400 figures attended from different political parties and independent figures as well. And in that conference, we have formed a document or a final document that includes the aspirations of Kurds in Syria. And that needs or requires dialogue as well. There was a delegation formed in that conference to go and negotiate with Damascus about Kurdish rights. And that delegation needs to meet with Al-Shara to talk and discuss this issue. And I can say the essential aim or purpose for us is the constitution, because the current constitution or the constitutional declaration by the interim government does not express the will of Syrians. We want to be part of drafting the permanent solution constitution of Syria. And also we want our rights to be included in the permanent constitution. All the articles or the items of the documents of the Kurdish conference should be also included in the constitution. And maybe it doesn't occur or appear very clearly now to the world, but I believe most what Syrian communities need is the constitutional guarantees for their rights.
Thank you, Ilham. You laid that out quite clearly. Your emphasis on pluralism and local autonomy as a foundation for a political solution really brings home what's at stake, not just for Kurds, but for all the minorities in Syria. Recently, the Trump administration's special envoy, Tom Barrack, has faced some backlash from Syrian Kurds over his remarks regarding the SDC's desire for self-rule in northeast Syria. Amongst many of what he said, he has indicated that that federalism in Syria will not work, and that you can't have independent non-national states within a nation. So I would like to know, from your perspective, how you see the United States supporting your desired goals, and beyond the United States, the role of international actors. We've seen signs of increased diplomatic activity. The March agreement between the SDF and the interim Syrian government included the US presence, but also French mediators who are supportive of building an inclusive Syria that recognizes the Kurdish plight and their desire for self-governance. And in addition to this, the 2014 UN Resolution 2254, which also offered a roadmap to building a democratic Syria, which reaffirmed the need for an inclusive political process, which included the Kurds and called for a sustainable framework for Syria's stabilization. So, Ilham, as someone who is at the center of these efforts, what role do you see for international actors, particularly the United States, in supporting a political solution that protects the rights of Kurds, but also is streamlining a way for Syria to move towards becoming a unified democratic country that can re-enter the international system as as a sovereign state?
سپاس إلهام تا بكرداسي برسوا برسامدا تديسا آني سر زمان كو تعدديات و خسر بونا ريفا برني أو چارەسەریە سیاسیە كو يعني جمافي حركسية أم فقرن هند خيانين كو بريز باراك في داوية دان درباري روشا هيدا ويقول كو مسدي دخوازي وك يعني ريفبريك خسر چه بكي دو سوريا دا وينا قد كو فدرالي لسوري نامشي ام نكارن بهلن دولتك دهندري دولتك دواري آواكرن هند بينن يعني رولا أمريكا تشاوا بشجريا و دانوستاندنان دكي و تايبت كو هن اكتورين دجي دفان دانوستاندنان دا حاضرن مديت رولا أمريكا لهفكرنا دهي آداري ده و دفا دانوستاندنان ده هي لفرنسي جيتي ده حاضرن فرنسي پر بشجريا ددن كردان ده 2014 جیده بریارا یو این درکت 22 پنجی و 4 گوت کو دوی سوریه که دموکراتیک ورا آوا کرن سریا لسر اساس چارەسەریک سیاسی شامل به تیدا کرد جی هبن جبو کو سوریه که نناوندی با آوایی که همدم وری آوا کرن تدبینه رولا وان اکتور ناونتوی چاوایه تایبت امریکا د چارەسەریە سووری ده و گارانتی کرنا مافی کردان جی لسر اساس سوریه که یکبوی دموکرات کو دکاری دیسا درباسی نوا سیستما ناونتوی ببه وک دولتك سر بخ
يعني سوري هين جبن أنقاذ درنكتي رصيل هم جواكا سوري قالك إيش ديتن وهم سوري بخوجي يعني بهرج قصة تيجو تنكو اشتاوى عقوبات رابونة فلان أما براتيكي ده هين تشتكي وتيجو هرتن تنايا صوز هنا وان صوزاجي كينجي بيك ورن نديارن لا زفيد بيجم يعني تشتكو بريز توم برا كوتيا يعني المصاد دبيجن وي داخياني كويدنجي ابو دقوت اتفاقية سيكسبيكو شاشبو مداخلة دربار لسر سوري لسر هرم رجلاتا نافن شاشبو پێویستە دینامیکên hundir bi xwe çareseriyê bibînin. Avaya ev tiştê ku gotî gelek di cî daye rast e. Dînamîkên hundir çawa difikirin, çawa dixwazin, yan jî çawa dikarin li hev de bikin. Yani di vî warî de rêv rêbaz derxistina holê daha rastir e. Yani ger bibe nenavendîbûn Sûrî bibe nenavendîbûn nate mena ku dewletek hundirî dewletekê dabe. Berûva cî wê hinek salahiyet tên parvekirin. Ew salahiyet dibe sebebê ku hemî herêmên Sûrî wek hev pêş bikevin. Bibin xwedî per yan jî bibin xwedî îmkanat. Her wiha hemû pêkhateyên Sûrî wek hev bibin xwedî mav. Ziman e, çand e, nizanim bawerî ye, vana. Yani vê mafî dide her kesekî ku jiyan bike. Wekî dî nabe yani kesî negotî dewletek di hundirî dewletekê de ava bikin. Yekî ne iddiaya me heye wisa ne jî me tiştekî wisa gotiye. Ji bo vê ev daxuyanî wisa bê serrastkirin ê baş bibe. Lê em vê dibêjin bi rastî em pir dixwazin bi rêz tombarek xwe jî bibînin, baştir bibînin, ew jî ji nêz de nas bikin. Bakur Rojhilatê Sûrî bi dawetiyekî taybet were ziyaretê. Di vî warî de yani em cihûdê wî jî gelek ew dibînin, yani girîng dibînin ku rastî pir xwedaye ber ji bo ku çareser bike. Lê em jî alîkar bin yani ji bo ku ew jî bi vê hewldanê xwe de bi ser bikeve, em dibêjin yani em ê bêra alîkar bin ji bo ku va hewldanê wî jî bi ser bikevin lê çareserî dema ku bingehîn bê mayende dibe. İstimrariyet de çê dibe. Dibe daîmî. Nana eger ecele bê û mueqet bê ev ya kîjan rojê bê carekî dî ezemet carekî dî derdikevin. Ji bo ya em dibêjin yani gerek têr em nîqaş bikin wisa ew nebe. Yani wek şêwazekî pir ecele û piştî wê jî carek dî pirsgirêk derdikevin wisa nebe yani.
Okay. So Syria is not out of its war yet. The Syrian society still is being hurt, and like although like sanctions were relieved upon Syria, but on the ground nothing still has changed, and there has been some promises that still are not clear when to be implemented. But I can go back to what Mr. Barak has said and also what he stated about Sykes-Picot and that it was unjust or not fair enough because the decision should be for the like internal parties in the region to decide how they can solve their problems and how they can reach to understanding that can be the basis of their work together. And also decentralization does not mean establishing a state inside a state or separation. It just means some wider or broader mandate and advantages for local councils to be more active on the ground, and also gives the opportunity for all Syrian cities to develop with the same pace, and not only give the opportunity for the center to rule the whole country and be the most developed place in the country. And also decentralization guarantees the rights of communities in terms of language, culture, and belief as well. And this is the right and correct thing to happen and to be implemented. And we did not even mention that we would like to establish a separate state or a state inside Syria. If the statement was corrected, it would be much better. And also in northern East Syria, we appreciate the efforts of Mr. Barak, and we also would like to be very much helpful to succeed with his effort. But the solution for the current situation should start from the bottoms and put the basis for the permanent solution right now. But if we just find some temporary solution for the situation, I think it will collapse very quickly, and then we will see more crises other than the ones that we have now. That's why we need very much deep discussions and not very quick solutions.
Thank you, Ilham, for your thoughtful and insightful reflections from our conversation today. With that being said, in the interest of time and the richness of today's conversation, we're going to extend the Q&A by an additional 10 minutes to make room for a few more audience questions. We already have several that have been sent in. So with that being said, I'd like to open the floor to the audience, and we'll move into the Q&A portion of today's webinar. The first question that I've received that I'd like to pitch to Miss Ilham is, how do you envision the way in which a solution can be found to the problematic issues that you have described? And what is your vision for how the future government should be structured?
قالك سباس بريز إلهام از باورم جبركو قالك دمي منا مايه وجبركو يعني برسبين تجي برزنجين بون براستي أمي ده دقيزي ده بدن جبوكو كسن حاضر جي برسي خو بكن براستي قالك برساتنا برساية كمين دبيجي وهون يعني دبينن ويتشاوا چارەسەری ژێڤان مژارین زەحمەت یەک و وەرن چارەسەرکردن ویچاوا چارەسەری ژوار وەرە دیتن و هون دبینن يعني حكومات بيشروجي د سوريا دا دبي چاوابي.
يعني از في بيجم جبوكو بيشروج يعني راست وري افكرن ديالوج راست لازم خلكي سوري دناف خدا ديالوج نكرنا افيا برج دي برسكريكا چند طرفي كردي هنن باردون چند طرفي سوري هنن دبيك الهفدرونن نونري بيكاتيانا ام بيجن نونري كتل سياسي حالي حاضر مثلا كتل سياسي دندري سوريا نكارت خباطه بكي جبركو قانون تنا يعني قانون كي كوف درفت بده رخصتن سياسي خباط بكن مثلا وعي كي سياسي درخنن تنا حالي حاضر تنا جوا اف بروبلما آدنجي يعني تقالي تطرف باور ناكم فكرة كي وصلت الفكرة برتكرنا دولة الجمهورية تناي أبيض حمي سوري بفكرة يكبونا دولة سوريا وأمجد نافدا لا أم يعني أفني ريناكو سوريا ننافندي به بر أطراف بفينا دفكرة جبو يجي دبيت في وريدا حكومتا دمكي أشا مجي أسوريجي هنا كي الجوه بده يعني اف عاليا سوري ايكو هنا كي جدا ترجوان ده فكر دبي جوه بده اگر جوه نده بانا و كريز بردوان بده والشر هندرجي و نقده برواجي و احتمال يعني حتى بيشروجي و قلق تنغاسي ده
Well, I can say that to have a healthy and correct future, there should be healthy and real discussions and meetings among Syrians, because the critical problem that we are facing now is that Syrians do not know each other, and Syrians have to meet with each other and discuss and get to know each other. This is very difficult to do, whether with Kurds or other Syrian parties, because unfortunately, up to now, there is no law that organizes the political work, and now having some political discussions will lead to problems to many parties in Syria. And also, I do not think that any Syrian party would demand the division or separation of Syria for any part, including Kurds. We do not ask for separation or division of Syrian territories, but the idea or the concept of decentralization is the demand and request of many Syrian parties. And many Syrian parties are supporting this idea as well. So I think the current or interim government in Damascus should pay attention to the desires of Syrian parties that think different than Damascus thinks. And if this is not going to happen, then I believe the crisis will get much bigger and the actions of violence will continue.
بس هلا دمكي شرع بريكو هين حكومة إعلام بكي بهنك أطيا فرا هنك كسيمة رونشتن أما مثلا يك جارجي نقول بلا وفدك جباكور رجلاتي سوري ورن أم بارا رونن أم لوانغو دار بكن شد فازل حكومات تك عالي إعلان كر نهار دخبت برلمان حاضري دكي أو يجي خبر كسي كجيتونه دستور وان تنه إعلان كرن وبشكل قاوين تك عالي تنه عاويتن أفيا رين بيشو تشرسلي فنو كين.
Okay, so before Al-Shara announced the establishment of the interim government, he has met with some Syrian parties, but he never asked to meet with any representatives of North and East Syria, unfortunately. So the government was announced from one side, I mean from the interim government side, and also they are now preparing for establishing a parliament or people's assembly. And they are working on that on their own without including other Syrian parties as well. And so it was with the constitutional declaration. And this does not support solution in our vision.
I will leave room for 2 or 3 more questions before we wrap up this conversation. So one question that was posed by one of the attendees is, what practical mechanisms or governance structures are you most advocating for to ensure inclusive representation, specifically pertaining to gender parity and multi-ethnic participation in future and national institutions across Syria?
يعني تشبه ميكانيزمين براكتيكي هنا يانجي تش هياكل حكومي هنا يكون هن ويدا خواز دكن جبوهن ما في خوا غارانتي بكن هر وها حاضر بونا جني وحمو بكاتين سوريا دنابا حكومتي دا بيجرو جيدا يعني هن تش دخوازن
داخازه ما هنن يعني ام دبيجن بيوست ام د حكومت دا ورن تمثيل كرن د وزارات دا د اصل سيادي دا يعني تمثيله ما هبه د برلمان دا مثلا تمثيله ما هبه د نفساندنا دستور دمكي دا تمثيله ما هبه يعني د اصلا اوه ده يعني في چرچوه ده داخازه ما هنن کو ام في اصل دا وصا دناوا اوه دا بن يعني تبليبونا ماده ده هبه وهر وهاد مسألة دمجي دا ديالوجي كي خورت ومكثف هبه ام قاربن في مسألة دمجي بشكل حقيقي ام أضابطن نشكل بي يعني ام حقيقي دين داكو ام قاربن ارتشي آسوري بهفرا بشي وزكي راست أضابطن ام هيكليا سازين اي دولتي بهفدورا ام أضابطن يعني ام خازن شريك حقيقي اي أضابنا سوريا نو ام تضابن يعني.
Okay, so our demands are very clear. We would like to be represented in the government, in the ministries and the institutions of the country. We would like to take part in the parliament as well, and also in the constitutional committee that will draft the constitution for the country. And this is the framework that we would like to be taking place in the government. And regarding the integration, that requires a very realistic, deep, and intensive dialogue between us and Damascus government to achieve an objective and reasonable integration into the new Syria, and not only a symbolic one. For example, we are thinking about establishing a united or unified army for the country, or establishing institution of the governments together, and not, we would like to be real partners in this country and in this government, and not just act like being like that.
Thank you so much for your response. This has been a very insightful discussion and conversation. So thank you again to Ilham for joining us today, and to all of our attendees for tuning in. We've covered a wide range of issues, from the evolving negotiations with Damascus to the challenges around building an inclusive governance under the interim government, to the role of women in local leadership. This is a critical time, and the support of international actors like the US and France is critical. This conversation comes at a crucial time for Syria's future, and we're grateful to hear these perspectives firsthand. So thank you so much, Ilham, for being with us today. We really appreciate your time and your insights. We hope to see you at future events hosted by the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy. To our attendees, thank you so much. To everyone who submitted questions. And again, thank you, Ilham and Sinam, for being here with us today. And on behalf of the Middle East Center at the New Lines Institute, thank you for joining us. And please stay tuned for future events and publications. I'm wishing you all a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Galax Pass.